This is the Mobile Philosopher Podcast. It's a lucky dip of strange distractions, engaging with the work of philosophers both living and dead. If you enjoy this podcast, you may enjoy the Mobile Philosopher books. There are 3 of them, and for more information, please go to themobilephilosopher.com. Today's episode, The Philosophy of Forgetting. Peter the Great was over 2 meters tall. Apparently he liked to collect people who were physically unusual and had a servant who was even taller than he was. I mean, that was pretty tall in the 18th century. Pretty tall now. I'm pretty sure that's true. Anyway, I mean, if you were to ask me, how do you know that? I wouldn't really be able to give you much of an answer. I'm pretty sure it's right. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. And most of our beliefs are like that. There's all sorts of things that you believe and I believe, where if you asked me, why do you believe that? I wouldn't really be able to give you an answer. Try dredging up some piece of historical or geographical information from your memory and ask yourself the question, why do I believe this? Probably, like me with Peter the Great, you can't give much of an answer. So our heads are full of all these convictions that we can't really justify. Chances are, if you're relying on your memory and you can't remember the origin of what you're remembering, chances are you learnt it when you were little, when you were a child, when you were busy soaking up information. So really, you're relying on a child. It's something which used to really bother Rene Descartes. He thought, look, you can't really know something if you can't justify it. So suppose you've got a belief and you can't justify it, then really you ought to get rid of it. What we need here is a really good clear out. We've got all this sort of mess in our heads, all this clutter. And what we need to do is go through each piece of clutter and ask ourselves for each belief, can I justify this? And if not, you should chuck it out. And when you've gone through all your beliefs and done that for each and every one, then you can start again. You can start refilling your head with beliefs. But each time you get a new belief, you should be thorough and you should ask, okay, what's the justification for this belief? This, of course, is impossible. Who could possibly have the time to go through all of their beliefs and inspect each one to see whether they've got a proper justification for it? Even Rene Descartes kept getting distracted by the 30 Years' War. Only in later life, he tells us, did he obtain assured leisure in peaceful solitude, and was able to apply himself seriously and freely to the general destruction of all my former opinions. Most of us are never going to have that kind of free time. And this is a disaster. To be rational, it's surely a bare minimum requirement that we don't believe things without possessing a reason to do so. And yet we break this rule all the time. One possible response here is to rethink our assumptions about rationality. Descartes here is assuming that a belief is guilty until proven innocent. Take, for example, your belief that water expands when it freezes. On Descartes' view, this conviction is suspect until you can give your evidence for it. If you can't defend it, Descartes says that the belief is guilty and should be banished. It should be banished until you can provide good reasons for it, on which occasion you can let it back in. An alternative is to suppose that a belief is innocent until proven guilty. On this view, we should only reject a belief if we have evidence against it. Take again that example that water expands when it freezes. There's something you believe, and suppose you can't remember a justification for it. Descartes says, well, that's guilty until you can prove it innocent. On this alternative view, you say, well, look, any belief in your head is innocent until proven guilty. So that belief is fine. Leave it there until we've got some reason to think that it's not true. In the absence of a reason to doubt that belief, on this alternative view, you just hold on to it. So what we've got here is a kind of philosophical conservatism. Descartes is the opposite. Descartes is sort of radical. He says, look, there's this kind of utopian ideal that every belief should measure up to. Every belief must have justification, and if it falls short of that ideal, then you must banish it. On the alternative conservative view, the fact that you have a belief already, the fact that it's already there, counts in its favour. On this alternative view, the rational thing to do is to just keep the beliefs you find yourself with, unless you have some reason to reject them. Gilbert Harman is one philosopher who favoured this conservative strategy. He thought it would be absurd to adopt Descartes' view that a belief is guilty until proven innocent. It would be absurd to think that to be rational, what you had to do was go through all of your beliefs and discard all the ones that you can't find a reason for. It would be absurd for that to be a requirement of rationality, because that's impossible. So instead, Harman thinks he's being very sensible by saying, let's have this sensible conservative strategy where the rational thing to do is to hold on to your beliefs unless you've got some reason to reject them. Each one is innocent until proven guilty. And that seems pretty sensible, but it does have some weird consequences. Imagine at school doing an aptitude test and having a surprising result. Suppose you get the surprising result that you're really good at maths. And so you form the belief, I'm really good at maths. And then a couple of weeks later, you learn that you got somebody else's aptitude test results by mistake. Right? So now you've got no good reason to believe that you're good at maths. But, you quite liked believing that you were good at maths. So you persist in this belief that you are good at maths. Now that's an irrational belief, right? Because you've got no good reason for believing it. And in fact, you've got really good reasons for believing that it's false, right? Because you know that the test results were not your test results. Some years pass and you forget all about the aptitude test. But this belief that you're good at maths stubbornly persists. So all these years later, you still believe that you're good at maths. And you've forgotten all about the aptitude test. Right? So now you've got this belief, and according to Harman, this belief is innocent until proven guilty. So he says it's quite rational to have this belief, because you've got no reasons to doubt it, because you've forgotten all about the aptitude test. And that can't be right, can it? That you've gone from being irrational to being rational just by forgetting some crucial information. That's bizarre. I can't start off having an irrational belief that I'm good at maths, forget all about the evidence against that belief, and by forgetting about it, suddenly become rational. So it seems like there's something really strange and really problematic about this conservative strategy, and perhaps we have to go back to Descartes' radical strategy instead, and suppose that we can't really be rational if we've got beliefs that we can't justify. Perhaps rationality does, after all, require us to keep track of our reasons for all of our beliefs. So, like Descartes, we're going to need a lot of leisure time and a lot of solitude. If you enjoy these podcasts, you may also enjoy the Mobile Philosopher books. There are 3 of them. They're available in the usual places, available at bookshops, available on Amazon. And for more information, please go to themobilephilosopher.com. Thanks for listening.